Hey everybody, Wyoming James checking in. It's day 19 here at the Urban Micro Farm, and we came out first thing this morning, checked on the little birds here in the garden. As you may already know, there's only 5 of them left, so we're keeping a close eye on them. As promised yesterday, I told you we would kind of explain a little bit more about what we're doing and why we're doing it, some of the details. So I'm glad to do that today. So this whole thing started out because I've never been a gardener. My family didn't garden. It wasn't something we did. So I meet this wonderful, amazing woman, Mandy, and she just can't wait to get a garden in the ground. So we get back down here to Casper, and she insists that we have a garden. So that's when we came upon this garden that we happen to be in right now. The first year we planted this thing, and I came out just to help her do the heavy lifting and the digging and the hard work, and I literally fell in love with gardening. It's one of the most enjoyable, rewarding things I've ever done in my life. In this particular garden, we grow corn, we grow snap peas, we grow 3, 4, 5 different varieties of tomatoes. We grow jalapenos, we grow Anaheim peppers, we grow beets, tomatillos, we grow beets, we grow radishes, we grow carrots, we grow watermelons, we grow squash, zucchinis, cucumbers, all of that in a 30 by 50 garden. At the end of last year when we harvested, I was like, man, there's got to be more. There's got to be more to this. So that's when we started kicking around the idea of having chickens. The city of Casper, the rules say that you can have 6 chickens at a residential yard, I guess, or residential area. So you can have 6 chickens, no roosters, can't butcher in town. That was just fine with us. So we started looking at different breeds of chickens, and we came across these Cornish cross. They're Cornish and Plymouth Rock. They're crossed, so they grow up big, they grow up fast. So I'm going to get into a little bit more about that when we get out to the pasture. But so we start exploring the idea of these chickens in our garden, because we've got all this leftover green. We had a lot of tomatoes that we couldn't use that the bugs got in. So we knew we could use that to grow up healthy chickens. So that's when we started putting this whole chicken thing together. So we did it, except we ended up going on a much larger scale. And like I said, I'll explain how that worked out when I get out there on the pasture. But in this garden, we feel like we could sustain these birds and make something happen there. So it started out for a desire for us to, first of all, know where our vegetables came from. We knew that there were no chemicals, no pesticides, nothing being used on those vegetables, and we loved that idea. Then we start talking about these chickens. We're like, hey, wouldn't it be great to know that only natural stuff was going into the chickens? There was no antibiotics, no hormones, none of that kind of stuff. So that was our idea, and that's what we're doing here with this garden. So I've already fed these birds. They're just kind of pecking around. So maybe we'll give you a quick tour of the garden here, and then we'll head out to the pasture. Okay, so starting here in the northeast corner, we've got our corn. Corn goes all the way along the eastern boundary here, and let me back up here. Pretty proud of this. We've got some corn coming in right there. So it won't be long. There's another little one right down there, but it won't be long before we're looking at ears of corn coming off this. Okay, so this right here, this is spearmint. And that's just coming in by itself. We didn't plant that. I think they call that volunteer. So right here, little cucumber plant. Got some jalapenos right there coming in. Some more pepper plants. Got our tomatoes here. Bell pepper. Anaheim pepper. Tomatillo, snap peas, tomatoes, more tomatoes, butternut squash, carrots, unknown variety of squash, dill, radishes, beets, watermelon, and green beans. Day 18, Urban Micro Farm. We're out here on the pasture. So we got a fair amount of rain last night. This is the most precipitation we've had since we've had the birds out on pasture, and they seem to fare all right. We had to we moved all 3 of them already, but what we had to do was we moved these 2 and had to stagger them, and then this one right here, we had to negotiate. There's a big hump right here. We had to negotiate around this big old hump, but we did it by spacing the 3rd tractor out and pushing it farther to the east, and hopefully that'll keep that nice and level. So what I want to show you back here though is how dry. You can see the difference. This is where this easternmost chicken tractor was last night. You can see how dry it was, and then there was the center one. You can see that some water came in the front and the rear, but the center portion of this stayed really dry. And then this one had protection apparently by the middle one, and it stayed really dry. So these birds are in here. We've fed them a little bit of scraps out of Nick and Carrie's garden. There's some potato peelings in there, and then there's some cucumbers in there from Nick and Carrie's garden. So they seem to be eating them up. All these birds are doing really well. And then here again, this is one of those things. So every once in a while, when we move these tractors, because the bottom of these is straight and the ground is not, there will be a little hump under there. And my thinking is, if I can slide the end of my foot under there, a small predator could get in there. So what we do is we take those 2x6s, cinder blocks, and block those up. But for the most part, they're pretty solid against the ground, and we don't have to worry about them. So, but just wanted to give you a quick overview of what happened this morning and what we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. All right, so it's morning of day 19 out here on the Urban Micro Farm. We're out on the pasture, and we've moved all these tractors, like I said. Kind of give you a quick overview of that. But a couple of things I want to talk about. One, when we started getting into this, the research we were doing was telling us that those Cornish cross birds don't do well at higher elevations. We're right about 6,000 feet here, 5,900 feet, I think is what we are right here on the pasture. So we're up there in elevation. So far, we're doing really well. These birds seem to be happy, and we're not overfeeding them. We're limiting the food that they're getting, and because of that, I think they're doing well. Now then, as those birds mature, we don't know what's going to happen, but the general consensus is these birds don't do well. But we did find some evidence of people raising healthy Cornish cross birds at higher elevations, so we said, why not? One of the other things that I need to explain to you is the CSA. I've used the term CSA a dozen times since I've been shooting these videos. And what CSA is CSA means Community Supported Agriculture. So Community Supported Ag, basically what that is it's for people who aren't inclined to grow their own produce, people who aren't inclined to grow their own poultry or their own beef or their own hogs. What it is it's people like Mandy and myself who have the ability. We have a little chunk of ground that we leased here so that we can raise these birds, so that people in the community can support our agriculture and benefit from that. And here's how they do that. Basically what they do is they tell us, hey, we want 1, we want 3, we want 5, we want 10 birds, and then they become a partner in this. So they share in our fortune, they share in our loss. So if we if we lose birds, the price per bird has to go up to offset that. But if we have a bumper crop of birds, then everybody shares in those lower costs. So the things we factor in are the cost of the land, the cost of the feed, and the cost of the labor to get them out here on the pasture and get them raised. I mean, there's as you guys can see, there's a fair amount of time that goes into the raising of these birds. So it's a real common thing in other places other than Wyoming. We're trying to get a foothold here so that it can become an everyday thing. So and in the future, you guys are going to see a lot more of that. You're going to see a lot more of community supported ag. And what we do is we hope that you either jump in and support us, or somebody maybe more local to you. It might be a mushroom producer over there in Fremont County, or it might be a beef producer down in Platte County. But nonetheless, there's so many opportunities out there. Do a Google search for CSA in your area and just see what's out there. But for right now, we're just trying to get more supporters to help us with our poultry project here. So real quick, that's our little tidbit for today, our minutia. I love that Lefty Miller pointed out that minutia may not be a word that I use every single day. Yeah, Lefty, I am a hayseed hick, but I do learn a new word every now and then, and I like to use them. But thank you for calling me out on that. So with that in mind, I do have to send a quick shout out to a young man named Nicholas. Nicholas got a hold of me through my Uncle Speedy. He's a relative of my Uncle Speedy. He's a 14-year-old young man from, I think, North Carolina is where he just moved to Wyoming from. And he got a hold of my Uncle Speedy and said, hey, I've been watching this guy's videos, and I'm wondering if I can get a hold of him. So my Uncle Speedy gave him my phone number. He called me last night. What a pleasant young man. He's got a lot of interest. He's watched every one of our videos, and he's got a lot of interest in what's going on with these birds. So Nicholas, I'm saying hi to you live here, buddy, and I thank you for your call. Thank you for your questions. Don't be afraid to call me anytime if you have questions, or comment below, and just tell me what you're thinking. So the interaction between the people that are watching these videos and ourselves, that keeps us going, because we sometimes struggle for content, but we want to know what you're thinking. So hello, Nicholas, and I hope I get to meet you in person here real soon. One of the other things that it's funny, because Nicholas's question, Christine Bannister's question, and then my Uncle Speedy texted me again this morning. Everybody's kind of concerned about that little maggot feeder. So far, I put my nose up to it. So far, no smell. It could very well happen that predators are smelling that carcass, and it might bring them in. Again, this morning, no evidence of predators. We're fairly urban here, so here let's take a quick 360 here, Mandy. And so we've got. It's open for about, I'm going to guess it's open for about 150 acres this way. And then all the way back, there's the mountain. Mountain's fairly wild still. And then right over here, if you can just see right here, this is a development right here. This is a subdivision that's on the west side of Casper. And so it's fairly inhabited. So I think the predators are kind of few and far between here, but they're still here. Don't get me wrong. One of my favorite coyote hunting spots is in a subdivision just like this, except it's on the east side of Casper. So they're here. But again, if that thing starts stinking to beat the band, and I'm just sick of it, I'm gonna huck it, and we'll get rid of it. And it was something that we thought we'd try, because we want to keep those costs down. The scraps from the garden, the bugs, and the proteins that are out here on this pasture, those are the things we're trying to do just to keep the costs down on this whole chicken raising business. So, but those are a few things. If you have any questions about anything we're doing, put them in the comments below, or private message me, or just shoot me a text if you have my phone number. If you don't have my phone number, private message me. I'll give you my phone number. So we want to hear from everybody. So keep those comments coming, and I can't thank everybody enough. So Wyoming James, Powder River Mandarin behind the camera, saying adios.